Your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit brings you Detroit's latest showdown: tariffs, factories, and the fate of Motor City. Detroit and Michigan are locked in a tug-of-war between Washington's tariff blitz and the hard math of global supply chains. Since spring, new duties on autos, steel, and aluminum have jolted costs. GM has eaten multi-billion-dollar hits and launched reshoring plans. Ford lost hundreds of millions in Q2, and Stellantis paused plants and trimmed shifts. Even Michigan's governor pleaded with Washington, just as courts struck down sweeping tariffs. What does this mean for jobs, prices, and model lineups? Let's break it down. Tariff whiplash, Detroit's first blow. The 2025 tariff surge didn't roll in quietly. It slammed straight into balance sheets, supplier contracts, and factory floors. April brought a 25% duty on imported cars and parts, followed in June by Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum doubling to 50%. Even made-in-America models rely on foreign metals, electronics, and interiors, so the cost ripple shot from ports to pricing almost overnight. Automakers scrambled to protect demand with incentives, but the numbers told the story. GM lost $1.1 billion in Q2, slicing core profit by 32%. Ford faced an $800 million tariff hit, while Stellantis paused plants in Mexico and Canada, triggering layoffs at U.S. suppliers. Dealers, meanwhile, braced for sticker hikes as tariffed shipments landed. Canada, America's top aluminum source and key steel supplier, was dragged into the fight when tariffs on non-USMCA goods jumped to 35%. Mexico won a 90-day reprieve, but uncertainty still froze planning. Then came a curveball. Courts ruled most IEEPA tariffs illegal, leaving automakers budgeting in legal limbo. And as the dust settled, Detroit's automakers knew the shock was only phase one. The next challenge was survival inside the factory walls. Factory pivots, retooling, reshoring, and battery bets. Once the initial shock passed, Detroit shifted into surgical mode. Purchasing teams scrambled to rebid contracts, qualify backup suppliers, and boost domestic content, even at higher costs, to blunt tariff exposure and geopolitical risk. Tooling changes and PPAP approvals take time, so the quick fixes came through product mix, leaning on high-margin trucks and SUVs, tightening incentives, and spacing launches to avoid rolling out new models in peak volatility. GM made the boldest move, committing $4 billion to expand plants in Michigan, Kansas, and Tennessee. By retooling instead of building new factories, it aims to add more than 2 million units of U.S. capacity within 2 years, clawing back some of the $4 to $5 billion annual tariff drag. But the quiet powerhouse is batteries. Automakers are securing North American cell partnerships and reworking motor and cathode designs to reduce reliance on China-refined inputs. The goal isn't just cost, it's resilience, shorter supply lines, fewer choke points, and pricing leverage. Meanwhile, legal uncertainty forces factories to build optionality into sourcing, ensuring flexibility whatever the courts decide. But production fixes don't matter without buyers, so how are things playing out on the lot? Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. This helps us reach more auto enthusiasts just like you. Showroom shifts, buyers, dealers, and pricing pressures. Step onto any lot and the question is the same. Are prices rising again? Automakers tried to cushion the blow. Ford went all in with nationwide employee pricing through June, before quietly raising stickers on Mexico-built models. Volkswagen added an import fee tucked into destination charges, while Nissan halted new U.S. orders for Mexico-built Infiniti crossovers to protect domestic allocations. Buyers, however, adapt fast. Some drop trims or option bundles, while others pivot toward hybrids and efficient ICE cars to keep total ownership costs in check, especially as insurance and financing stay elevated. Fleet managers stretch replacement cycles rather than gamble on expensive new tech mid-chaos. Dealers lean heavily on certified pre-owned to keep payments palatable, while incentives grow more disciplined. No broad discounts when costs are climbing. Expect mid-cycle refreshes to emphasize practical, high-value features over low-return tech. Stellantis's April shutdowns in Windsor and Toluca showed how policy shocks ripple through supply and labor. With courts now challenging tariff legality, pricing teams are running dual playbooks for both outcomes. And this isn't just a US story. North of the border, Canada and China are shaping Detroit's future in their own way. North of the border, Canada's leverage versus China's grip. Canada hasn't fired back with equal tariff force. It's playing the leverage game. Even after Washington raised tariffs on non-USMCA Canadian goods to 35%, Ottawa still supplies most US crude and aluminum. In 2024, American refiners processed about 4.1 million barrels per day of Canadian crude, a record post-TMX expansion. That energy and materials dependence buys Canada room to prioritize mining approvals and domestic refining for critical minerals like nickel, lithium, cobalt, and rare earths, rather than wasting ammunition on tit-for-tat retaliation. China, meanwhile, remains the upstream wildcard. US-built cars still rely on refined Chinese inputs, rare earth magnets, alloys, battery precursors. Export curbs or slow-roll tactics can inflate costs and delay production regardless of tariff schedules. That's why policymakers are backing North American processing, and automakers are engineering workarounds. Motors needing fewer rare earths, diversified cathode chemistries, and modular BOMs. The near-term play is risk-splitting suppliers and routes. The medium term is industrial coordination with Canada, and the long-term hedge is design. Vehicles less vulnerable to single-country choke points. With global leverage and local costs colliding, the big question becomes, what do the next 24 months really hold? 2 years ahead: jobs, pricing, and product mix. Detroit faces a decisive 2-year stretch. In the most likely path, tariffs persist in some form, but courts or carve-outs ease the pressure. Automakers will pass part of the added costs to buyers, especially on import-heavy models, while accelerating reshoring plans. Average transaction prices stay firm, incentives remain targeted, and slimmer entry trims keep monthly payments manageable. Dealers lean more on certified pre-owned to preserve affordability. Employment stays uneven, reduced overtime and pauses balanced by hiring tied to retooling and battery supply growth. GM's $4 billion US expansion underpins this steady-state course. An upside scenario brings policy relief for critical inputs, lowering costs and stabilizing pricing. Automakers could pull forward launches, hybrids and PHEVs would scale faster, and suppliers gain visibility, helping jobs stabilize sooner. The downside case sees tariffs broaden or China tighten exports. Prices spike, features are stripped, and the market tilts toward high-margin trucks and SUVs. Entry-level cars shrink, leasing grows essential, and layoffs rise until new US capacity arrives. Hovering above all, the appeals court ruling, leaving flexibility the ultimate survival tool. Which leads us to the final verdict. What's Detroit's winning playbook? Verdict: Detroit's high-stakes crossroads. Detroit can't control tariff wins, but it can control readiness. The winning playbook is clear: flexible manufacturing, diversified sourcing, and disciplined product strategy. Reshoring must stay on track. North American battery cells and materials need to be locked in, and designs should engineer out reliance on single-country choke points. For customers, transparency on pricing and strong ownership value, CPO programs, warranties, and service will become the new trust currency. For policymakers, surgical relief on critical parts could ripple through to affordability and jobs. Detroit must make itself indispensable. When you control the essentials, cells, magnets, motors, high-volume platforms, and deliver profitable hybrids and EVs, tariff turbulence stings less, and recovery comes faster. Detroit has rebuilt before, and it can again, this time with fewer weak links, stronger home field supply, and vehicles designed to thrive under any policy weather. Now we want to hear from you. Can Detroit truly de-risk from China? Or is that wishful thinking? Will buyers accept higher prices or lean on CPO and leasing? Which scenario feels most likely? Steady state, upside relief, or downside pain? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We love to hear from you. For the latest updates on the automotive world and more in-depth analysis, subscribe to Piston Pundit and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching and see you next time. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.